every single Monday, the first thing that I do when I log on, or maybe sometimes I'll do it on the Friday beforehand, is really lay out my key priorities for the week and say, these are ultimately the must-win battles that we have over the next 5 days. This is what I'm focused on. Ensure that the focus and your priority areas are plugging into these things, because these are the items that are most important right now.
Every B2B marketing team faces challenges when they have to do more with less. Should you build skills internally? Should you find a freelancer? Should you search for the right agency? This is Tech Qualified, a podcast for the scrappy B2B marketing teams. In each episode, Meredith Metsker, a senior content leader at a tech company, and Justin Brown, a marketing agency owner, uncover how marketing teams generate qualified opportunities with limited resources. Every episode helps you get one step closer to winning over your ideal customers.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech Qualified. I'm Justin Brown and I'm joined by my co-host Meredith Metsker.
Hey everyone.
This show is brought to you by New North. New North specializes in working with B2B marketers who have to do more with less. When you partner with New North, you turn your small, scrappy marketing team into a growth engine. So, interesting thing, the show is all about small marketing teams at B2B tech companies, and I work at an agency that helps small marketing teams at B2B tech companies, and Meredith works on a small marketing team at a B2B tech company, which is why I'm excited to have Tory Kindlick on the show. Tory is the VP of Marketing at Corti, and before that, he was the VP of Demand Gen at Refine Labs. So Tory himself has kind of seen things through my lens and through Meredith's lens, and I think it'll be an interesting conversation, kind of seeing how that's parlayed, how he set up his team now that he has one. So anyway, with that, Tory, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Justin, Meredith. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so loaded first question. What is your biggest challenge working on a small, scrappy marketing team?
Biggest challenge, I think it's got to be prioritization. There's always so much work to do. And no matter how much work you do, no matter what type of hours you're working or how productive you are, there's always going to be a huge pile of work to do. And so I think oftentimes what it boils down to is how you can prioritize the most important work. And that's a lot easier said than done. But yeah, I'd say day in and day out, that is probably the number one challenge that I'm running into is, figuring out where I should be spending my time, where I should be directing my team to spend their time to make sure that we're using all of our time and resources to drive the biggest impact for the company.
See, I can definitely relate to that, being on a small marketing team myself. We're a team of 3 marketers technically and 2 BDRs. So I'm curious, Tory, when it comes to prioritization with limited resources, limited staff, how do you go about prioritizing? What have you prioritized?
Yeah, I think it depends on the day. It depends on the week, right? Then that's the standard canned answer for a marketer, right? It depends. And I think, early on when I first joined the company versus, I'm only about a few months in at this point, my priorities have absolutely shifted. But I think, when I first joined the company, as much as it was a whirlwind and, at times a little bit overwhelming, I had to kind of continue to remind myself why it was that I was chosen for this role, why I convinced them that I was the right fit for this role. And so for me and for the role that I'm, taking on here at Corti, it was about building a demand gen engine. And so early on, the main focus for me was trying to figure out, number one, who are we going to be targeting? Who is our audience? What were we going to be saying to them? Getting a better feel for the product, and then really getting to work and starting to build. I did allow myself a little bit of a grace period in the early days to just kind of go into sponge mode, right? Talk to all my new colleagues, see what type of customers and customer intelligence I might be able to absorb, really understand not just where the company had been, but also where we were headed. And of course, in the process there, I was able to identify a number of different gaps that we needed to fill. But, really kind of falling back on the work that I had been doing previously at a demand gen firm, at a demand gen agency, it was really getting to work with starting to build out campaigns, ensuring that we had the right frameworks in place, the right measurement systems. And so that was where I was prioritizing my time in the beginning. And now, a few months after that, there's still a lot of campaign development, of course, and a lot of reporting and analytics, and we're never going to be finished as far as, those items go. But lately, I've also been shifting a lot more into product marketing, which has been an interesting journey for me because I didn't have a ton of background there. And so, really trying to kind of, figure out the right way to approach this and ensure that, I am able to address a lot of these big product marketing gaps that we've had around the company here.
And one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to small marketing teams is, and I talk about this a lot, Tory, like on sales calls when I'm talking to someone like yourself, is how funny or not funny or fair or unfair it is that a small marketing team, basically to compete in the market, has to do the same things that a large marketing team does. The large marketing team just has more people to get it done. If you're a small marketing team, you still have to create content. You still have to reach out to the people in your space. You have to run paid media, you have to run ABM campaigns or some sort of outbound action or what have you, and you just have less people and less resources. So I'm curious, like, how you leverage different resources to make all of those things come true. Because, like, for me, the big thing that I try to set up when I work with these small teams is having some sort of owned media entity, some sort of owned media piece, and then leveraging that across a variety of actions, whether that's writing and then leveraging that owned media piece in paid media, leveraging it in some sort of outbound campaign where you're reaching out to people to try and drive traffic or respond, direct response. And then, hey, have you checked out our show, and kind of using that top of funnel, what have you, and using like this one thing, because we just have but so much time. So do you have like an approach or a marketing methodology that you try and leverage to get a lot out of a little?
I think that, so the way that we have the team structured here at Corti right now, we also just have 3 marketers on the team besides myself. So we have a person that's doing brand and communications. We have a person that is kind of doing everything design, from, a little bit of UX UI design to, deck builds and helping me with the website. And then we have a person that's heading up a lot of our events, and eventually we'll be, focusing on a little bit broader field marketing and not just events and trade shows. And so I think, one of the most interesting challenges that I've been coming across here, right, is for the last couple of years before I joined Corti, I was marketing to marketers and selling to sellers, and I was intimately familiar with who they were and what they were all about and the different, mediums and platforms that I'd be able to reach them on. And all those things kind of just went out the window as soon as I moved into this healthcare space. I personally wouldn't be able to, start a podcast and go out there and educate a market the same way that I would with marketing expertise, because, my new market now is going to be doctors and nurses and, people that are heading up innovation departments within health systems. And for lack of a better term, nobody really gives a shit about what I have to say about their field of work.
Yeah.
They have been spending years of their lives in school and in offices and emergency rooms refining their craft. And so, the things that I would have to say about, what they can and should be doing is just not wholly relevant. So a lot of the work that we're trying to do is, I think I like to call it, manufacturing credibility. We ultimately have this amazing product, and there is, awareness challenges that we're trying to figure out here. And one of the best ways that we're finding to get in touch with and to really, create that credibility with the audiences we want to get in front of is by way of other, doctors or people that have worked in this space, and having them alongside the folks that know our business and our tech the best. And so that approach, I think, where we're utilizing people that have the credentials, that have the experience, that have ultimately the trust, right? Everybody trusts doctors. And so finding people that were both passionate about what we do and also, had practiced something that was going to be relevant to where our tech, our solution, our AI was going to be making an impact in these health systems. And combining that with the people that, ultimately our chief technology officer and some of our heads of product, kind of, trying to really bring them into the forefront, into the spotlight to help us amplify our message and evangelize our product and brand. And I think that combination is something that is working for us. We're experimenting with a number of different mediums, whether it's going to be, being a guest on podcasts, whether it's going to be creating long form content, video content. We've actually seen a lot of really good traction with your kind of old school PR and communications, and trying to get plugged into these very legitimate media outlets. And so, going back to like what I know best, which is setting up these demand gen engines and these reporting frameworks, we're able to really see that all right, I can be running all these ads on LinkedIn and sure, we're getting decent engagement and I'm able to track, which of our target accounts are engaging the most. But when people are coming inbound, oftentimes they're citing work that we put out, whether it was, research that we presented at a conference or whether it was a write-up that we got in TechCrunch. And so, that has been a very different marketing mix, we'll call it, as compared to what I've known and used previously. But I think what it comes down to, right, is everybody wants to work with an expert. And so we needed to prove to our market that, hey, we are experts in what we do. And we have these other experts that aren't even really employed by Corti that also believe in what we do. And that's really been, one of the ways that we've been trying to kind of manufacture that credibility and show the world who we are, what we do, and that we're very legitimate and not just one of the, the new AI tools that's popping up every single day.
Yeah, and Meredith, I actually want to ask you a question because you're in a similar situation where you have to, as a marketer, create content for a space that, I don't know, maybe you have an education tech background, but I don't think so, but you can expand. So how are you going about creating content that's relevant to the people in your space? Because I think you've taken more of the approach of actually getting into it and being kind of the face of it, which I know is a challenge. I work with a very talented marketer. He does the newsletter for Marketers in Demand, and he hosts a podcast they're a fintech. And I've had multiple conversations with him about how complicated that is and difficult it is when he's talking to the CFO of Peloton. He has no financial background and he has to create, long form content and does it through interviews. So Meredith, I think you're taking a similar approach. Like how do you feel about that? How has that experience been for you? And what's it like to, have to jump in and create content in an industry that maybe isn't your bread and butter?
Yeah, Tory, as you were talking, I was like clapping in my head. I'm like, yes, I know the struggle. I know how fun it can be too to learn from people who are experts and kind of expand your own personal knowledge on a different topic. But yeah, for us, it was kind of the similar thing where I'm working with career services leaders. I have not worked in career services. I have worked in higher ed and marketing before, so I had some knowledge of how higher ed works because it's very different than like B2B tech, for example. But I kind of had to just go directly to the source. And this is sort of taking from my journalism background and training, where I like constantly had to interview subject matter experts about everything from the municipal sewage system to like a new business that's opening up. And so I just was trying to figure out, how do I access these experts? How do I kind of facilitate sharing their knowledge with our audience in a way that is accessible and easy to digest? And we came up with the idea of a podcast. So that's kind of our main pillar piece of content, because I wanted, again, to be able to interview these subject matter experts and then just create a content waterfall from there. But yeah, it has been interesting sort of being the face of this. We call it the Career Everywhere movement. That's kind of a sub-brand of our company's brand. And yeah, like I don't have that background, but I have to try and get that knowledge out of these subject matter experts and share it in a way that is entertaining and helpful. And yeah, it's been fun, but it has definitely been a challenge.
Yeah, one of the things that we certainly leverage, because we're creating content engines for a lot of our clients who are in all sorts of fields, from real-time data and oncology to restaurant point of sale systems, and we do something similar, which is just leveraging interviews to create that content. Because if when people come to us and they're like, are you an expert in insert complex B2B software company here? I can't be an expert to everyone and everything. And I find that those conversations, whether it is, Tory, your team going and appearing on podcasts or leveraging the in-house people or just having conversations, it really helps a lot. So how's it been for you, Tory, trying to probably drink from a fire hose? Do you have any experience before this in kind of healthcare technology, or was it, hey, I can figure it out? What's it been like?
Yeah, I had about a year of experience working for a healthcare tech company a few years back. One of the plays that was really successful for us there is something that I'm trying to explore right now. Unfortunately, it's not a quick win. And so I worked at a company a few years back called Vitalware. We were in the let's call it the rev cycle space, and we had a solution that helped with a lot of the billing and coding that happens on the back end of, these patient interactions. And one of the things that, was effectively already in place when I joined the company, but I really helped kind of grow it. And we did have, COVID-19 that ultimately helped accelerate our business, ironically. But, we had a webinar program that we were offering continuing education units for our audience. And ultimately that both worked as somewhat of a lead magnet for us. But on top of it, more importantly, we were offering very legitimate and very helpful information, as well as these, continuing education units that the people needed in order to stay certified in their roles. And so, what we did is we took advantage of the fact that there was, with COVID-19 going on, there was a lot of different new billing and coding nuances that had to happen and that people needed to learn about. And we did have the people on our team that were experts in these areas. And so, we really just kind of turned up the volume on what we were doing already and went from doing it once a month to once a week. And that really, really helped grow the business considerably. We saw our pipeline explode by way of that. Our awareness, skyrocketed as well. And so, that's something I'm very interested in trying to put in place at Corti. But unfortunately, many times in order to become a credentialed organization, it can be a 12 to 18 month process. And no one's going to give me 12 to 18 months to prove myself around here. So
you don't just get a bunch of time as a marketer. Like, trust me, it's going to work in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, this worked for me once before. So yeah, just give me 12 to 18 months and we'll figure it out here. No, unfortunately, no one's given me that type of leeway around here. So that is something that we're going to kind of figure out how to explore and eventually put in place. But if we started when I got here, then we might still be about a year out from actually being able to do something like that. So, there are going to be some different opportunities where we can maybe partner with, some of these already credentialed organizations and put on an occasional event, and so, there are ways that we can kind of maybe cut some corners and do it every so often, but not to the extent that, it was a real engine it will become a real engine for us like it was in my past employer. But yeah, that was, I'd say the most experience that I had working in the healthcare industry prior to joining Corti was, the year that I spent doing that, which was an incredible experience. And I learned a whole lot, but I'm far from an industry expert as far as healthcare marketing goes.
I would love to hear a little bit more about your team, Tory. So you mentioned that you have, 3 people and you, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So, yes, we have our brand communications and PR person. We have our designer, and we have our events and field person, and then myself. And I'm primarily focused on demand generation. And, I try to wear my product marketing hat pretty regularly as well. And my rev ops hat. I've got a lot of hats, but yeah, demand gen is definitely my sweet spot.
Isn't that how it goes on a small team? Everyone is wearing all the hats all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious, how many of those people did you inherit and how many did you hire? And for the ones you did hire, I guess, what was your reasoning for investing in those roles early?
Yeah. So ultimately, I pretty much inherited all 3 of the roles, but unfortunately, the person that was heading up our events, her last day at the company was my first day. So we had very little overlap. I got a little bit of documentation from her, and she did a really nice job prior to my joining the company, but I had to go hire for that role. And so, that was the only person that I had brought in during the first few months I've been here. I am very interested in bringing on a product marketing person as well, since, I know that I'm doing enough to kind of keep the lights on, but by no means am I a product marketing expert. And I really do want to bring someone in here that can, focus on kind of acting as the bridge between our product organization and our customers and the rest of the marketing team, since that's something that I'm just kind of trying to spend some of my time on today. But yeah, the makeup of the team right now is just the 4 of us. And so, yeah, we're definitely a dynamic group. But yeah, I think for the most part, those are the swim lanes that we're kind of looking at.
Okay. I'm curious, how do you identify those skill sets that you need, and how do you kind of bring those out of your team? Because I remember I read the transcript of your call with Justin earlier, and you kind of mentioned that one of your superpowers is being able to identify people's talents pretty quickly. So I would love to hear more about that and how you kind of bring out those skills and those talents on your team.
Yeah, so I think what I inherited and really what I've kind of seen from the team is, our brand and communications and PR person he's an incredible storyteller. And so that is ultimately what I want him most focused on is telling those stories, whether it be, writing himself or heading up an engagement or an agency that's, helping us produce some written content, leading the PR engagement that we recently kicked off, or, working with any of the, kind of video production groups that we're working with. He's an excellent storyteller. He really understands the position of the company. He's gotten very close with the founders over the years. And so I love the fact that he is able to kind of craft that narrative and tell a story. And ultimately that's what, I really want to continue to have him in the place to do is tell the story of Corti and find different ways that, he can do that. And then, my role within that is really helping him distribute those stories. When it comes to our designer, I think he is, like I said, before he wears a little bit of the hat of the UX UI design. He wears a little bit of the product content collateral design, and then, helps me with some of the website as well. And so, he is a very popular resource around the company since everyone always, needs some type of design support. And so what I'm really trying to do with him is ensure that he's focused on kind of the core areas that are going to be needed of him on any, across any given week, any given month. And then, I'm really kind of trying to make sure that I'm able to get his attention on whether it be ad builds or helping me with, some new page designs or something like that. I think the thing that I work on most with him is trying to make sure that he's not becoming too overwhelmed with all the different things that are coming his way. And that's also helped me learn things like Figma and Webflow since he's not always available to help me out with it. Our field marketing and events person, he just joined us about 2 months ago. And so, he's been really kind of jumping into the role quickly to help with a lot of the execution of the events that we already have. But now on top of that, what I'm kind of working with him on is, how do we're kind of going through an exercise right now where we're tiering out all of our events into tiers 1, 2, and 3. Tier 1 events are going to be our biggest events where we're really trying to make a splash. The tier 2 events are kind of what I'm theming to, break outside the 10 by 10. We spent a lot of time in 10 by 10 booths and scanning badges over the years. And so I'm really trying to figure out the way that we can take advantage of finding speaking opportunities and putting on executive dinners and creating more immersive demo experiences for the people that do come by our booth. And then the tier 3 events are just more exploratory. So really trying to help him kind of put the systems and processes in place that we've been lacking there. And then, on top of that, trying to give him the freedom that he can think creatively and help us figure out the right way to stand out and create these memorable experiences at our events and trade shows so that we're not just showing up, see and be seen, scanning a couple badges and call it a day, but rather doing things that potentially might be able to create some content at these events and stretch the investment there from a 3-day event where we show up and try to, collect some leads to something where we can create evergreen content and continue to get value out of our presence there. So I think what I've seen from the people on the team here is that they have these specialties, which they're really good at. And I feel like my role is trying to help them step a little bit outside their comfort zone, stretch, some of what they're doing a little bit. And then also help make sure that, whether it's the storytelling, whether it's the design work, whether it's the events, that I'm helping them distribute their work to a much larger audience and try to, really chip away at this awareness issue that we're trying to solve for.
All right. Tory's team, this is 100% a hypothetical, so do not take it as he's choosing a favorite report, but I want to ask. So let's say you're just Tory and you take this job, you don't inherit anything. Now, disclaimer to the audience, Tory, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're a little bit more on the technical side in terms of the scope of VPs of marketing out there. You have your VP of marketing who's like air traffic controller, has very little, doesn't get into the CRM, doesn't set up, roll up their sleeves and get into Webflow, what have you. I'd say you from our first conversation and kind of my understanding of just some of your skill set, you would be a little bit more on the technical side. So understand that as I ask this hypothetical audience that, that's probably going to go into the way you would structure a team. But let's say over the course of 6, 12, and 18 months, you step into a role, VP of marketing team of 1, you're the marketer. And then 6 months in, you get headcount for 1. 12 months in, you get headcount for 2. 18 months, you get a headcount for 3. How would you build a team? Now, another disclaimer here. You mentioned, I know you mentioned drafting best player available. So the answer might be that you want to see who just is the most talented person that you interview. I don't know. So I'm just curious how you would approach building a team as a VP of marketing team of one? Because I hear these all the time. Like, I talk to people, I find it so fascinating. It's like I talk to someone, they're a team of one, and they're telling me I'm hiring designer first. And I'm like, fascinating. That's your first FTE that you're going after. Like, I feel like you could go get good design help, but I don't know. So how would you do it?
Yeah, what a great question. So I guess since I can't answer, it depends. I'll give you kind of at least a little bit of the rationale in my thinking here. If I
didn't think you were just going to have like a clear, here's my 18-month 3-person hiring plan. I actually have it on my drive right now. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, if I were to be, let's say joining Corti all over again in that situation, or frankly, any industry where I did not have legitimate expertise, then I think my first hire would ultimately be, somebody that can, a creator, right? Somebody that can help me create content. And I think that knowing my skill set, which is demand gen, trying to, turn all the great work of the marketing team into something that's going to drive, revenue and pipeline, I would need somebody that can help me create content first and foremost.
You hear that, everyone? Hold on. I want to say that again. For everyone who reaches out to me and says, Justin, I just want you to do paid media. I don't want you to create any content. And I say, you literally can't do these actions you want to do without having someone who creates content. So his first person would be someone who could create content for him. All right, Tory, continue. Thank you so much.
And I think, right, because I think there's, I see kind of two different types of, whether it be a VP of marketing at a smaller company or even a CMO at a larger company, is like, you've got a person that really understands the frameworks and the nuts and bolts of everything. And I would say I'm probably more in that bucket. Or you have a person that's already a subject matter expert in that specific industry. And then they need to go hire the people that can help them kind of build out the frameworks and the engine. And so, for instance, if I was taking a role like a marketing leadership role in the marketing and sales industry, I would probably be able to do a lot of content creation myself. But that certainly was not the case at Corti. And so for me, the biggest thing is finding someone that can help me create the content, because creating high quality content is not easy. It can be really tricky if it's something that you decide to outsource. Oftentimes you're going to need to give a lot of direction and a lot of guidance and provide that expertise or that research in order to get the type of content that's ultimately going to resonate. And on top of that, one of the challenges that I have here at Corti, it's a good challenge to have, is that our CEO has a very high standard for quality. And so, I think his opinion is effectively, if it's not excellent quality content, don't do it at all. And so it kind of comes back to that whole quality over quantity play. And sure, there is probably an avenue that we could explore where, we're creating a whole lot of maybe not as high quality content, but doing it very, very consistently and using that as a way to kind of amplify our message. But that's not in the cards for the marketing team here at Corti. And so for us, it's about, how can we, create this really kind of high production value stuff and do it in a way that, it's not going to take us 6 months or a year to do it. And so getting back to your question, I think, ultimately I would want someone that is a creator first and foremost and has that skill set or collective skill set of being able to write and create video or, direct an agency on how to do those things, because it's very time consuming, but also extremely important to being able to generate demand and pipeline and revenue.
Amen. All right. So content creator first, and then, all right, I'll let you off the hook with the other two. I have one other question. So first 12 months, still this either 1 or 2 person team. What kind of freelance agency, what kind of other help are you bolting on? Like, what are top 1 to 2 priorities in terms of out of house?
Yeah. I think the big thing for us at the moment is, my background really kind of lends itself to running a lot of paid media, but doing that the right way is time consuming. And so I did reconnect with a friend from a previous role that is doing a little bit of freelance work for us and helping to, manage some of those campaigns, just so it's not something that I'm having to do kind of day in and day out. But it's a pretty low lift, right? I don't expect that person to be actually creating the ads themselves and understanding the audience and doing all the copywriting. This is really just purely executional in nature, but it can be a time suck to spend all day in those ad platforms and make sure that you're spending your money efficiently and scaling it the right way. So that's one of the areas that we're kind of have hired a person in a freelance role. And then the other one is, and I mentioned this earlier, is that, we've also brought on a person that's effectively working for us as, you could call him an evangelist. And he is an MD. He is a person that, ultimately approached us about loving the company and having interest in finding a way to work together. And so, first and foremost, my initial reaction was like, I would love to have a person with medical experience on this team. We don't have a chief medical officer here at Corti. That's an intentional decision because while we do have advisors and, customer advisor board, medical advisors, we also have made the intentional choice of building an AI that was not going to be relying on a single chief medical officer's opinion in order to, kind of determine the way that our AI is going to learn and think and react. And so that, unfortunately for me as a marketer, leaves me with a little bit of a gap in terms of just, I could sit there and write copy and do all type of research on my website all day, but I need someone with that medical eye, since ultimately that's a lot of times who our buyers are, to kind of help keep me honest and also stand alongside some of our experts on when we're creating content, to kind of help us be a little bit more credible to the medical community and hopefully infuse a little bit of trust in our target audience. So those are the two roles that I think I'm really looking at in terms of some kind of like freelance support right now. And so, it's helping with the, a little bit of execution on one side and then a little bit of expertise on the other side. And that's kind of where we're looking at right now in terms of, just some kind of contracted support.
That's awesome that you had a doctor come to you wanting to be an evangelist. Like, isn't that the dream?
It really is. Yeah. And I couldn't say yes fast enough, but I think that, there were also a lot of people at the company trying to keep me in check and say like, hey, we don't want to bring this person on for a full year right off the bat and give them, shares in the company. Like, let's kind of bring them on a project basis and see if they can really help us make the type of impact that we want. And we'll kind of see what that looks like over a few month period. And hopefully you were able to scale that person's role a little bit. But yeah, you're 100% right. That was music to my ears when I first met this gentleman. And so far, we've only been working together for a few weeks, but I think it's going to be a really good match. And yeah, he's got a good eye for marketing as well. So that doesn't hurt.
That's a great combo.
For sure.
That's how you get that subject matter expertise in-house. So Tory, I just have one more quick question. I want to go back to something you were saying earlier about how you have to wear multiple hats in this role. So I'm curious how you balance your role as a leader, as trying to bring out these skill sets of your team members, and then your role as a contributor, like being in the trenches within your team.
I guess from like a philosophical perspective, I like to lead from the front. And so I think that the best example that I can set for my team is just by going and doing the work and kind of, being transparent in what I'm doing and why I'm doing it along the way. And really kind of helping people understand exactly, which path they should be following and really kind of giving them that example. And so like, for instance, every single Monday, the first thing that I do when I log on, or maybe sometimes I'll do it on the Friday beforehand, is really lay out my key priorities for the week and say, these are ultimately the must-win battles that we have over the next 5 days. This is what I'm focused on. Ensure that the focus and your priority areas are plugging into these things, because these are the items that are most important right now. I can't spend too much time hand-holding, because the time that I'm spending, helping my team with their work is ultimately time that I'm taking away from the other responsibilities where I need to kind of fall more into that individual contributor type of role. And so, that I think is something that I've found to be pretty effective so far, is just laying it out crystal clear for everyone every single week. I use something as simple as a Google document and just explaining what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, maybe give a little bit of a recap on last week and talking about, specifically the deliverables that we want to, have in place by this next Friday. And so, maybe a bit of a kind of agile sprint methodology there. But, I think that kind of keeps everyone moving in a line without having to take too much time for hand holding and all that can come with, working in a a bit of a leadership role. So yeah, that's kind of something that I've found to be pretty effective, and I think it also kind of comes naturally to me. I can be a pretty chatty person, and so when we have our team call every Monday, I'm just kind of running through, and in the process of running through 5 bullet points, I might end up talking for 30 minutes and giving more context and rationale than anyone's asking for, but kind of playing educator in that position as well.
Makes you a great podcast guest, though.
Great.
So I think we're coming up on our time here, and I just kind of want to recap because I think it's super important in these conversations. It sounds like really the way that you set up your team, or that you would set up a team. You inherited your team, and sounds like you're a really good leader. I like to lead from the front mentality, and I think those are the people who right now are successful in marketing. I think that the people who are really kind of playing that like air traffic control, you do this, you do this, you do this, make it happen. Unfortunately, with budgets the way that they are, that kind of just like, hey, I lead, you do, is kind of going away. So it is nice to hear, that lead from the front perspective, but then also just the 3 things that you found most important, right? So you have you as the leader who has kind of that technical expertise, can get in and tinker with things. The thing that you would hire first would be a content person to be able to create, tell stories, what have you. And then the thing that you would onboard from the perspective of, either an agency, or if you could get the right person, what have you, would be that kind of paid media person. When in that kind of construct, you're setting up kind of that marketing ops workflow, the content creation piece, and then the paid media piece to really drive those near-term wins. So I just thought that was a really... I'm not surprised necessarily based on all of the things from Refine Labs that I've seen over the past 5 years, and that's where you were before this. Not that they're not your own kind of personal IP in the way that you think, but it is also kind of the way that I've shifted my mentality as well, which is really, building out a good infrastructure and then trying to have that balance of the, kind of those, that IP or that long-term build of the content person, and then the short-term wins, whether it's paid media or an ABM campaign or something like that. So really appreciate you sharing with us, with the team, with the audience. I guess they're part of the team now. Anyway, Tory, really appreciate you jumping on with us. Meredith, thank you again, as always, for co-hosting. That was another episode of Tech Qualified.
Thanks for checking out Tech Qualified. This show is brought to you by New North, a marketing agency that helps turn your small, scrappy marketing team into a growth engine. To find out more about New North or check out more episodes of this show, go to newnorth.com/techqualified.